Welcome, fellow nerds. This is Christian, and today with my brother Nick, we're going to go over some of the things we would like to see in Rebels Season 3. Something that none of you will be surprised that we both enjoy. So, some character cameos that we would like to see in this season. Since Rogue One is going to start that December, it would be great if we could get introduced to a few Rogue One cast members, both on the Imperial side and on the Rebel side. If they could just be introduced a little bit, or at the very least talked about, that would be a great setup for that movie. Possibly the introduction of some of the bounty hunters. Now that so many of the Inquisitors are dead, maybe Vader will get desperate enough to start hiring some of the bounty hunters. I think Boba Fett and IG-88 will be great ones to start out with.
Especially IG-88. I keep on hearing about this character, but I know nothing about him. Even the wikis don't make sense of what he's all about.
Well, one thing that would be really interesting about him is this whole concept of droid freedom that is hinted at occasionally. Like, if you think about, droids are slaves in the Star Wars universe. Like, they are treated horribly by a lot of human characters. Their lives often don't matter at all. They're disregarded and used as scrap and parts, and they're traded from one person to another. It's like and IG-88 hates that. He hates human. It's kind of like
HK-47.
Yeah, HK-47 is very similar to kind of the personality of IG-88, in that he hates humans, and in the old expanded universe, he was planning a whole droid revolution during the same time as the Galactic Civil War.
And yet, for some reason, he's always portrayed as a bounty hunter.
Well, because he's killing, meat bags and getting paid for it.
Okay.
But it would be kind of interesting that the philosophical debate of how droids are treated, especially with Chopper, is kind of like the rude, selfish version of R2-D2. It would be interesting if Chopper is almost like a little tempted to help IG-88.
Another great cameo that will work is if Ezra Bridger actually meets Jabba the Hutt. Another suggestion is in the season 2 finale, he was able to open the Sith holocron, which means he is flirting with the dark side. I think in season 3, it should definitely show that Ezra has become much more ruthless, much more violent. Especially if he constructs himself a new lightsaber, but it's a blaster, not a stun gun.
Leading up to Rogue One as well, it'll be great if they have a few more Death Star hints. The timeline between Rebels and Rogue One, Rebels is a little bit earlier on, but if they could have, not knowing what the Death Star is, but if they could visit another planet that parts of it were constructed for, and they would be trying to figure out what this thing is, we would all know it's the Death Star, but they would have this hidden thing that they know that the Empire is working on.
Another thing that I think will be great to explore in the third season is Kanan's backstory, especially with his old master. Forgive me if I pronounce her name wrong. Depa Bilbada. I'll just call her Depa. But I think it would be great that if Kanan tells Ezra the story about how he met his master and their little adventures together.
Another thing that could be introduced in both Season 3 and maybe in Season 4 is some of the non-Imperial factions that are out there. We know about the Hutts and certain things from the Clone Wars and the mining guild and stuff like that, but there's the Hapes Consortium, various other groups on the outskirts and in wild space and the outer rim. They should come across other groups of factions, multi-planetary systems that are able to not challenge the Empire, but be a little bit more troubled than what it's worth. And maybe them going around trying to find alliances or trade, and at the same time they don't want to pick a fight with the Empire, but at the same time they don't like the Empire, and they know that the Republic was a much more reliable neighbor than this new Empire is.
One thing that I do hope we get to see eventually is Cloud City. Lando Calrissian doesn't have to be involved with this episode, but I think it will be great if the Ghost crew got to visit Cloud City. We got to explore more of this megastructure. Now, before we go over the ships, there's just one thing that's bothering me that I really hope is resolved. For season 3, can we please have Hera and Kanan actually admit that they love each other?
And they don't, like, it'll be interesting if Kanan is actually torn about it, because does he want to follow the old Jedi ways, or does he want to, be on the light side but still be in a relationship? But at the very least, I agree, they should at least acknowledge that they have feelings for each other. But this is a kid's show, so you're not gonna. I don't know how much detail they would even go into. Like, even if they just hold hands and look at each other, and they don't even say "I love you," but they just said, like, "I know how you feel," or blah blah blah. Like, I don't think you're gonna see them being boyfriend and girlfriend in this show. Because if they do, one of them's gonna end up dying. Because you can't have a happy couple going on at the same time as this rebellion going on.
Okay. The last suggestion we want to give is the ship cameos.
So, Y-Wings are the oldest of the Rebel, like in, I guess, prior canon, or they were in the Clone Wars, but Y-Wings are supposed to be the oldest of the ships. And then X-Wings, because those are the only two ships that you see in A New Hope. And it's not until Return of the Jedi that you see A-Wings and B-Wings. They've kind of turned that on its head in this show in an odd way, where you have this rebel group having A-Wings now, as well as having the prototype of the B-Wing. So they really need to introduce like these Y-Wings and X-Wings, and why they're the backbone of the rebellion fleet at the time of A New Hope. I'm thinking maybe they should find like a cache of Y-Wings, something that's left over from the Clone Wars, and it will be a huge deal that they suddenly have these vessels that actually can go after Imperial cruisers. A-Wings are great as a interceptor role, as a air superiority fighter, but they're not good at all against hardened vehicles and anything, like large cruisers. So it would be great if they could find a cache of these clone era Y-Wings.
They do have Rex as an asset now, so I'm sure that that'll be explored eventually.
So besides the Y-Wings, they need to hint at least something about X-Wings as well. Maybe visiting the company that is designing them and getting the Rebel Alliance to work out a deal with them of getting them in the future. But they definitely need to introduce those two Rebel fighters, because right now, new viewers will be confused of why you have these things, and then the X-Wings and Y-Wings, and then back to the A-Wings again. It's not the order I would want to do this in, but maybe they just wanted something small that looked like it could pair up with a Corellian Corvette.
Right. I also think that they should add in the various types of TIE fighters that are in the expanded universe, especially the TIE Defender, which was a much more sophisticated but also much more expensive version of the TIE fighter. Chris mentioned about this in his Wave 3 and Beyond suggestions video for the Empire, but the Defenders were basically the anti-X-Wing TIE fighters, and even had their own hyperdrives, but so few were made because they were much more expensive.
Yeah, you could have a whole squadron of regular TIE fighters for the cost of one TIE Defender.
Yeah. I mean, this is optional, but I think it would be pretty funny if we got to saw a TIE crawler. Basically, a TIE fighter had a love child with a tank.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they could actually visit where and try to sabotage where they're building these ties, and that could be something that could be defending their facility as a tie crawler.
Also, what would be pretty cool if uh, maybe the Ghost Crew finds out that the Empire plans on using droid fighters. Maybe introduce the TIE droid fighter.
One last thing that I think would be particularly interesting is while Ezra is flirting more with the dark side and getting darker, it'd be interesting if Kallus is actually thinking about defecting and is more conflicted with the Empire. Because where we saw him last, when he had that encounter on Geonosis' moon, he saw how well the rebels, that camaraderie that they have with each other, while when he went back to the Star Destroyer, no one gave a shit. And he just realized how, like, the honor and the respect and just, like, how unappreciated it is, as well as he didn't believe that the Empire would wipe out a whole population of people. So he should start investigating what went on Geonosis, and he should, over the course of this season, decide that he's going to defect to the Rebel Alliance. And maybe he could be the way of how they get in contact with the X-Wing producers, or another thing of information about the Death Star that then leads up into the events of Rogue One. So these are some of the ideas that we have for Rebel Season 3, as well as what would probably bleed over to Season 4. So what would you like to see in Rebels Season 3? Are you enjoying Rebels? And do you think Ahsoka is alive or dead? And
she is definitely alive. I have a feeling she's still alive.
Are we going to see her in Season 3?
I don't think so. The writers are pretty much going to said that they are pretty much going to put her on the bench. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I mean, I would like to see her character eventually so we can get closure, but I'm okay that the character is on the bench so far.
Yeah, they're kind of pulling a Walking Dead move of not letting know who lives or dies certain finale. I hope this has been informative. What are your thoughts? What do you want to see in Season 3? And goodbye.